couldn't believe I made this mistake. Look at that. All of these years of playing Call of Duty and I do that. I was just kidding. You know I can't waste Juggernaut like that. And I think you know where I'm going in this suit. Do you think I was able to replicate that 360 performance in the suit on this map in that room? If you would like to see, let me know, and in the next video I'll show you what happened. I'm still experimenting on the 360, seeing how it goes, and watch this aggressive move. I pull out of the gate, I get 1, I get 2, I get 3. Can you believe that? Oh, I ain't the Marker J, baby. I tried to take a page out of the Marker J's playbook, and I only ended up taking about a sentence. Don't worry though, I'm gonna get that guy back, and I'm gonna get him back pretty soon. But in the meantime, why don't I talk about strict parents? I know there's got to be some people watching this video right now that have some strict parents. So I'm going to encourage you to share some of their tactics in the comments section. And I'm going to tell you a little story about some strict parents. Not my parents, my uncle, my cousin's parents. So one of my uncles, he's an engineer and he's extremely passionate about his career. And that rhymed accidentally, didn't it? How did he not see me? It's simply amazing. So one of my uncles is an engineer, and the things he does is just crazy. He makes everything in his house. He's got a lot of crazy ideas. And I remember one summer I was staying over there at his house, and he created this toy car. And when you would put the toy car under a light or a lamp or something, then the wheels would start spinning. So it was some kind of solar powered toy car. Hold on, I need to switch mics real fast. Splash. All right, now I can switch back to this mic. And so I guess my uncle never figured out how to take that toy car model and make it a reality, because if he did, then he would be a billionaire. A real life-size car that could run off of solar power, he'd be a billionaire. So I guess he never figured that out. But that wasn't all he could do. All the fans in his house were created by him. All the TVs in his house were created by him. He was always doing something like that. And one of the funniest things I thought he did for his kids was he restricted their access to TV. Each of his kids had a certain amount of time on the TV per week. And that time was kept by a device that he created. He had this calculator that sat on top of the TV. And in order to turn on the TV, you had to enter in a code on the calculator. And so he gave a code to each of his kids. So if they wanted to watch TV during the week, they'd enter in that code. And let's just give an example. Let's say he said his kids could watch 10 hours of TV a week. If they went over the 10 hours, the TV would turn off and they wouldn't be able to turn it back on until the next week. It was crazy. And then the TV also wouldn't turn on at certain hours of the day. So when his kids were supposed to be in school, the TV wouldn't turn on. It didn't matter how many hours they had in their accounts. It just wouldn't turn on. So if they stayed home from school, they couldn't watch TV because it wouldn't turn on anyway. Now remember, I'm staying at my uncle's house with my parents, of course, and we're visiting, and this is what we see. So my uncle gave my dad a code that was, it could turn on the TV at any time. And so while we were visiting, you know, I'd say, hey, Dad, turn on the TV and just leave it on, you know, and so while we were visiting, his kids got some extra time on the TV. So they loved it when we were there, and they wished that we would come back and visit some more and stay a little longer. And I thought it was funny because when his kids would do something good, when they would get good grades, when they would do things like that, he'd give them more hours per week on the TV. Pretty interesting, right? Pretty interesting parenting style. And then that wasn't the only thing that he restricted. He did the same thing on their computer. So when you would first turn on his computer, there was a password at the BIOS screen. And if you didn't know that password, you couldn't even get to Windows. And he was the only one that knew that password. His kids didn't know it. Now, the funny thing was that if you got that password wrong 3 times in a row, then the computer wouldn't turn back on and he'd have to open it up and he'd know that they were fooling around and he'd lay the smack down. If he didn't want his kids on the computer, he would just turn it off and they wouldn't even be able to get past that first password screen on the BIOS. So I always thought that his parenting style was really interesting. And I have to say that it worked. Because he has 3 kids and all of them are doing well. One of them, his oldest daughter, is a doctor. Then the youngest daughter is a nurse. And then his son is actually in college right now, so I'm not sure what his son is doing, but I'm pretty sure his son is going to be doing something important as well. And I'm actually going to find out because next month I'm going to New York. I'm going to go visit my grandma because she is really old. So I'm going to be stopping by there and I'm going to visit them and I'll find out what the son is doing, what his career is going to be and where he's going. And there is one more thing that my uncle did in this household. It's not really a restriction, but when you call their home, you have to enter in a password to actually have the call go to the house. I don't know how he did it, but you call the home and then it says, please enter in your code. And I was like, what? So then if you enter in the right code, then it starts ringing in the home. So I guess he created that system so that he doesn't get spam calls from telemarketers and he doesn't get calls from people he doesn't want. If he doesn't want his kids to talk to certain people. I don't know how it works, but I thought that was crazy. And it just seemed like everything that he did was like really protective and restrictive. And I remember after witnessing that, when I came back home, I felt so good about my parents. I was like, my parents don't do any of that. I am so glad. The only restriction my parents did was they said you got to go to school every day. I was the kind of kid that was at school every day. I rarely ever missed days. Probably in high school, I think I only missed like a handful of days. All 4 years of high school. That's crazy, right? So that was really my only main restriction, but all those other things I thought were crazy. Let me know if you think they're crazy and leave some crazy restrictions that you're going through or that people that you know do.